Good afternoon, Directors. Regional District Board meeting for Wednesday, May the 12th. I have confirmation of a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have adoption of the public agenda, please?
Move adoption.
Second.
Wally and Cornfield?
Just question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I had provided, and perhaps it was just in the chat last time, but we had orally talked about a notice of motion that I had provided to staff. I think I said, as I said in the chat, with follow-up from the delegation that we had last meeting around fish farms.
What fish farm?
Should I provide that as a notice of motion again, or do you want to try to address that today, Mr. Chair?
Let's do a notice of motion, please, Director Henderson.
So would you like me to send that to staff or speak that to the board?
We'll speak to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you started yet.
Yep.
I'm just getting going.
Just getting
So-
going, okay.
Okay. On adoption, I'll call questions. Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. Petition delegations. We have salmon farmers in Discovery Islands. Eileen Selbury from Quadra Island Salmon Enhancement Society to make a presentation. Welcome, and please go ahead. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Eileen Selbury, a board member of Quadra Island Salmon Enhancement Society, or QUISIS, and representing them today. QUISIS has been working on Quadra for almost 40 years, and I've been involved around 8 years. We monitor about 7 salmon creeks south of the portage on Quadra. So first and most importantly, thank you to Minister Jordan for removing open net salmon farms from the Discovery Islands area. There are 3 main dangers to salmon in the area and probably in most places. The first is climate change, sometimes called climate crisis, catastrophe, or chaos. Due to logging and mainly due to mosaic, known as previously as timber west. And third is fish farms. Okay, a personal anecdote and then a global statement. Personally, kayaking below the Octopus Islands around 7 years ago, I noticed suspended particulates in the water, in cloudy water, as far as I could see. And I was about 500 meters from the fish farm that was next to Quadra Island below the Octopus Islands. This continued. Some of the fastest tidal changes on the west coast, and the salmon fry had to go through that. Globally, on February the 19th, 21, there was a 2-paragraph article in the Guardian Weekly, page 8. I'll read it. Salmon farming is wreaking ruin on marine ecosystems through pollution, parasites, and high fish mortality, and has cost around $50 billion between 2013 and 2018. This is a report, Dead Loss, from Changing Markets Foundation, and says that 1/5 of the annual wild fish catch, which is around 18 million tons, 18 million tons, is used to make fish meal and fish oil. 70% of that goes to fish farms. In Scotland, Canada, Norway, and Chile, 60% of the costs associated with fish farming, for example, fish mortality and treating fish life, is borne by the producers, but wider society pays because of pollution, loss of fish populations, and effects on climate change. And there's a few notes to make here. First, the loss of wild salmon was not factored into this study because the report was looking for features across all jurisdictions, and some, for instance, the salmon farms that were or are in Tasmania don't have a wild salmon population. So that's a big thing missing. And secondly, a personal point, to me, farming salmon is farming carnivores. And I don't really see at present how this can be done sustainably because they need other creatures, mainly little fish, to eat. But it's not my problem. It'll be those that put the farms on the land. And then a comment from Dory Woodward, who's a works for the Association of Denman Island Marine Stewards, who calls the herring fishery there unconscionable. That's the biggest, most robust herring spawn on the coast. But each year they are fishing herring, and herring spawn for 7 to 8 years are not like salmon. So this means they're losing all the spawners. And she said most of this goes to fish farms and making cat food. Okay, and then the last point to make is if you Google fish lice on salmon in the Discovery Islands, the report the 16th of April 21, you'll see that sampling, mainly chum and coho fry, around Nadales and Opisolo last year came out as an average finding of 9 lice per chum fry. This year at the same time, there was a finding of 9 lice per 50 fry. So this works out as about only 3% of what it was. So I urge you to look at this document, Fish Lice on Salmon in the Discovery Islands, the 16th of the 4th, 21. And now, since I have a little time, I'd like to discuss the other problem, which is habitat loss. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can hear me, okay. We have requested that Mosaic will stop logging the Hyacinth Creek watershed. This is our most vulnerable watershed, has the 10th largest number of coho and chum in it. And the coho will be extinct for various reasons, mainly due to climate change, logging for 40 years in the watershed, and also putting Walcan Road through a wetlands area. There's not enough water in the creek in the summer. Queeses in 2008 put in drought proofing, bringing pipes down from Mud and Reed Lake into the lower areas to help the little coho, but we still are having to move the coho fry from puddles further down in the summer. So this is something serious on Quadra, and it is happening on our watch, or personally on my watch. And I feel very responsible for this. Dominico United has been notified. Logging practices in BC have not changed in the past 40 years as regarding climate change, which we're all aware of. It's business as usual. The only 2 things I can find that they've done is, when I asked Rick Monchak at a public meeting a few years ago, he said they are now planting white pine. It'll take 15 to 20 years for those trees that are planting to start sequestering carbon. And of course, the older the tree is, the better it is, and especially old growth trees for sequestering carbon. And then the other thing, recently Domenico Iannadinato was interviewed on CBC, and guess what? They now have electric logging trucks to cut out dead carbon sequestering trees. And I think this is worthy of a Gary Larson cartoon. I wish he was here. Okay, thank you very much. And again, thanks to Minister Jordan. And I finished my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Move receipt of the presentation with thanks.
Thank you. Director Lee, seconder.
Second, Davis.
Any questions?
Director Davis, is there any questions? Seeing none, I'll call question on the motion. Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on
Thank
to
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Moving on to E, adoption of the minutes, motion to receive.
Move receipt.
Second.
I think it was Director Evans and Director Cornfield. Wally,
Mr.
thank
Chairman, I
you.
believe, Mr. Chairman, is that a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes,
Adopt.
Thank
Yes.
adopt.
Adopt the minutes.
Adopt the minutes. Yeah, adopt the minutes.
you.
Okay. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. Any business arising from the minutes?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
The Chan application to rezone Helmkin Island in these minutes. Can't read my own writing here, but the consultation process is on land use, and it should have, in my opinion, been voted on by the Electoral Area Services Commission in recommendation 38921. So I'm just asking why that wasn't done.
I'll go to staff.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, first of all, this has to be done at the board. The question, I think, is which directors are entitled to vote.
Yes.
In the opinion of staff, the request was for a meeting, I believe, with the board chair, the CAO, and the director of planning to talk about consultation in general. I don't think it was necessarily attached to a particular application, so that was the recommendation from staff, that it would be a full board vote on that issue.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Yates. Okay, Director Anderson.
I just wondered where you wanted to take the notice of motion, if you wanted it to be here under business arising or later.
Let's do it now, Director Anderson.
Thank you. I just sent it to Edith again, if she can bring it up. So it was just coming out of the presentation we had at our last board meeting from a number of, I think it was the wilderness tourism folks with regards to this Discovery Island Fish Farm. So they had a request of the board, and I just wanted to put it before us for consideration. So if you want to do that today or next meeting, your call. But the notice of motion is that the SRD support the federal government decision to remove open net pen aquaculture from, should be say fish farm, I guess, aquaculture from the Discovery Island region, and that the chair write to the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans accordingly. Oh, so,
Okay.
so open should say open net
Open net pen
fish farm or fish aquaculture. Thanks.
Okay, Doug, seconder.
There's no
I don't
second
think
on
you
a
need-
notice
you
of
don't need a
motion.
second.
Sorry, correct. Thank you. Okay, so it'll be notice of
Chair.
motion for our next meeting.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr.
no
Chair,
Director Lee.
I thought that we already did take a position on this and wrote to the federal minister some months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. And it's not our jurisdiction to decide where these fish farms are going.
Point
But
of
we-
order, Mr.
Point-
Chair, there's nothing on the table. This is a notice of motion for the
Notice
next
of motion.
meeting.
Okay,
There's nothing
but I'm
on
just
the table to
saying,
discuss.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
Thank
just
you, Director.
asking whether we already had
No.
sent in our position.
It'll be discussed at the next meeting when this comes up. Thank you. Question on this motion, is anyone opposed? Seeing none.
It's not voted on. It's just a notice of motion.
Okay, thank you. We'll carry on. Is there anything else under business rising? Hearing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. No public considerations. I guess you could have no motion there, that's fine. Under my chair's report, I have a couple of things. We're sure getting lots of background noise today, gang.
Yeah, folks, I can't hear it all. I've logged in and at times. I don't know what else to do. I'll just keep logging in and out, or if people could mute, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay, so if you're not speaking, please mute. Thank you. Okay, under chair's report. So in today's meeting, you'll see I'm going to try and implement a little bit of procedures. When an item comes on the agenda, we will vote on the receipt before any discussion and debating. It seems to me that there's lots of discussion on the receipt, and then we discuss it again during, the resolution B, C, D, etc. So be patient, and we'll get through this. The other day, I was fortunate to sit on a Zoom meeting with Mr. Osborne and Mr. Beer. Of course, they were talking about connectivity, and I had some words for both the ministers on our Connected Coast project and the lack of information that they are hearing and seeing from TELUS, and TELUS's inadequate mapping of speeds that they're saying they have. I mentioned the Gold River loan and TASIS. We didn't get any funding because, as far as they were concerned, we were a served community of 50-10. Well, we know that's not true just by the speed test that we sent. So anyways, it's just a quick update on that. And I know our CEO got an email, phone call from the deputy minister the next morning saying that maybe the mayor of Gold River is a little harsh on him. Well, it was just the facts. Other than that, I came in early today. I had to drop my car off. I stayed on the East meeting, and I must say I was a little disappointed on some of the directors, on some of the comments towards staff, how they're, putting words in there such as, the staff are making independent decisions, et cetera, and all staff are doing is following the bylaws that are in place. So I was, like I said, I was a little upset on some of the discussion that was going on, but it's your meeting and I'll leave it at that. And that's all I've got for my chair's report. And motion received verbal, please.
Move receipt of chair's report.
Second.
Second.
Yep.
Discussion. So if I could, Mr. Chair, TELUS sent in something that said you had 50 down, 10 up, and therefore your community was already served by high-speed internet.
That's correct.
So, and you were denied the grant because you were already served?
That's correct.
And you did tests and you pinged your systems and no one could get 5010?
Correct. Actually, Renee
are the ministers going to reverse their grant decision?
I asked afterwards, sorry, Director Cornfield, I asked at the end, what's their plan to do, with the discussion that we had today. And I had a meeting with MLA Babchuck midweek last week and was informed her of our conversation that we had in the meeting, and she was going to look into it also, whether or not they reverse it or not. It's not only reversing for us, it's, there's other areas within our Connect the Coast project that they say, according to their government website, is we are served and we're not. And I asked the government basically, Charlie, is, they asked what barriers need to be addressed. And I said the government has to stop supporting the big businesses in their lives.
So I guess the reason that I wanted to have some discussion about it is, yes, I understand that this is happening in more than just Gold River, but also in some of the electoral areas. And I think that as a board, we should be supporting our members and especially our chair when you have a meeting like that, for them to call up and say, oh, gee, you were pretty hard on us. In my opinion, you were too soft. And I think that the board should be considering sending a strongly worded request to reverse the decision.
So if I can just chime in a little bit,
yes.
If I can, Mr. Chair. So UBCM, because of the issues we've had in the SRD and the speed test mapping that has been posted for grant funding availability, UBCM is conducting a speed test survey, and I know that there is approximately 45 communities in British Columbia that are participating in that. That was commissioned by the province. And so results of that, they say, will come back in early fall, and we'll see, we'll see what happens out of that. But we've done, sorry. So with the understanding that, these communities, and that's why it was important for us to make as many applications to these funds as we can, is that we have tangible correspondence back that says you didn't get funding because of this. So if the study shows that in fact that was not accurate, then we'll be sitting down and reassessing those applications.
Provided we're one of those 45 communities selected, provided some of our communities are selected, right? And what about electoral areas?
Yeah, so it was whoever wanted to be selected could. So I got a lot of communication and correspondence from folks, And so we obviously took all our areas. There was a area D, Tassus, Zabalis we got money for, Gold River, Quadra. I guess those are all our remaining communities. So we participated in all of our areas that did not receive funding. And so you didn't have to be chosen. You volunteered which communities you wanted to have tests done in.
So would it hurt if we sent a note in requesting that they reverse their decision?
Well, I think we've got quite a bit of correspondence back and forth with them, and the real impetus of the study was done because of what happened in the SRD. So I'm confident the province is well aware of it. We're on the top of the list for certain. I mean, I talk with Network BC almost daily, Citizen Services weekly for certain. So,
but there's going to be nothing happening until the fall.
Yeah, that's what they told us.
At the earliest.
Yeah.
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 Anyway,
Okay.
I just thought it was worth discussion. And
Yep. No, appreciate that very much, Director. And I have Director Abram. Jim, do you have your hand up? You're muted.
I was trying to cut down on the comments you made just now, Director Cornfield. Thank you very much for them. I totally agree with you. We should be sending a very, very strong letter to not Network BC, but the Minister of Community Services and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and I can't remember Minister Bear is what her ministry is called, but it should go to all of them, and it should say very clearly what we lost. Quadra Island had about $8.5 million applied for the unserviced areas, and in the end, we got around 2 point something million. So we lost around $6 million, and I believe it's later on this board agenda, we're going to be approving borrowing of $17 million for communities like mine and a few others, so that City West can do their job of last mile connectivity. But this is something that would not have to have been done had the province come through with what they said they were going to come through with, and that they changed their mind based on erroneous information coming from the, I won't name any companies, but the big boys, telling them that we have 50-10. Out of the 200 homes that we did on Quadra Island, according to their prescription, speed test, screenshot, send it in, compiled in a report, done very well by Dave and Renee and others. We had one out of 200 that got 38. That was the highest. Everybody else was down in the like 10 to 15 megabits down, and anything from I don't know, 0 to 3 up. So a strong letter saying they've been misled. Their acceptance of that information has completely thrown a wrench in our works, and we're supposed to be laying cable in June, and the commitment was that Quadra Island would be lit up by October. Well, you can't do that if you don't even get a decision on funding until summer or fall.
Yeah.
So I think that, we really do need to follow up. I know that Dave is following up daily on this.
Yeah.
But that's at the staff level. We need to be talking at the political level, right through the ministers to the premier if necessary. That's where it needs to go. This is part of the national and provincial goal. Everybody in the rural areas and the small municipalities is supposed to get 50-10 service and
Okay.
we don't.
Okay, thank you, Director Gabriel.
I'm sorry to take up so much time, Mr. Chair, but
No, that's fine.
I had
No,
to say it, you know.
yeah, no, I agree 100%. Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would also support writing a letter along those lines. I know our experience in Tassus led to us being effectively cheated out of a $2.4 million matching grant. We were prepared to go ahead with that. That we found 3 locations in Tassus that met the bar, one of them being the village office. And for the most part, most people have 6 and 3 here, so we came nowhere near what was required to meet the bar. So I would in fact support writing a letter myself.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call question of verbal report. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Is there a subsequent?
Mr. Chair, can we take it under new business later in the agenda?
Okay, you want to add something? Okay, thank you. Just writing it down. Okay. Consent calendar, nothing. Under committee reports, first one is First Nations Committee report. Motion to receive the report.
I would move that the draft minutes of the regular meeting of the First Nations Relations Committee held on April 28th, 2021 be received.
Second.
I think you're Director Davis, the seconder. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? On receipt, I'll call question. Oh, Director Davis, you have your hand up? No, he doesn't.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, on receipt, is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Under Municipal Service Committee, motion to receive the draft minutes of the Director Adams.
Second.
Director Davis.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. Under staff reports, item 1, 2020 financial statement audit findings, motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Director Baker, second.
Second.
Director Lee, thank you. Anything to add, CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Harmston will speak to this for us.
You?
Hi, through to the chair. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've completed our 2020 financial statement and audit finding report. We have Corey Vanderhurst here from MMP LLP who will speak to the results. Yeah, I don't have too much to add aside from what's in the report, so I'll pass it over to you, Corey.
You?
Thank you, Mike. Thank you to the chair and the directors for having me here today. Hope everybody can hear me all right. I am going to attempt to share my screen here. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. And you should be able to see the first slide here for the Regional District for your financial statement presentation. So I'm going to take you through a quick summary of the financial statements, talk a little bit about the audit process, and I would be happy to answer questions toward the end.
Yep.
So starting with your 2020 financial statements, looking at the statement of financial position or the balance sheet at the end of 2020, you can see that cash and investments to the Regional District had increased from 21.3 to 24.7 million. So total financial assets of 39.7, about a $4 million increase year over year. The debt being carried by the Regional District itself, 2.1 million, so being paid down on schedule from the 2.2 in the prior year. And total of all liabilities at the end of the year, 19 million, down a little bit from the prior year's 19.2. So if you take the liabilities, subtract them off from the total financial assets, you get the net financial asset position of $20.7 million, which again, about a $4 million, just over a $4 million increase year over year in the financial position. The tangible capital assets being managed by the Regional District, you can see the increase there from 23.6 to 25.5. So significant capital projects, the energy efficiency updates, as well as the beginning work on the Connect to Coast project I believe over 800,000 spent in 2020 on the startup phases of that project that you were just talking about. Accumulated surplus, so at the end of the year then has increased from $40 million to $46.3 million. I will get into what's in that number in a future slide. On the operating statement or the income statement for 2020, revenues, as we would expect in the pandemic, things like recreation and some other services affected. So revenues decreasing from 21.2 to 20.1 million. In addition, there was some significant grant funding for various projects in 2019 that had wrapped up and didn't carry into 2020. So that explains your drop in revenue. On the expenses side, along with the decrease in recreation revenue goes a decrease in some of those associated expenses. So we see expenses drop almost $1 million from 14.7 to 13.8 million dollars in 2020. And so on an accounting basis, annual surplus very similar to the prior year of 6.3 million dollars of surplus. But the cash flow statement has a little bit of a different story. This is a little bit more important to look at the cash flows. This is how you're thinking when you're looking at your budget. That annual surplus of $6 million is on an accounting basis. So the operations at the regional district brought in 6.5 million, very similar to the 6.2 in the prior year. Again, $3 million used in capital projects, $84,000 of paying down debt on schedule, and a net cash inflow of $3.3 million for the 2020 year into the main bank accounts. The accumulated surplus of 46.3 million, most of that number tied up in physical assets in water and sewer and infrastructure, buildings, vehicles, and equipment. So the next largest number there is your reserves. Just shy of 16.9 million set aside in reserves. Then we see a little bit in this capital fund, $2.2 million in appropriated surplus, so set aside for future projects, and an operating fund surplus of about $3.7 million. Shifting gears then to our audit and our audit results. Happy to provide another clean audit opinion for the regional district this year, an unqualified opinion. We're ready to sign the report. The last step in the process is board approval here today. We've got all the final steps wrapped up over the last couple of days here. A reminder that what we just went through, those are your financial statements, the regional districts put together by your staff. Our audit responsibilities is to test the balances and make sure we're comfortable with those numbers to be able to give you the audit opinion. So we start by looking at the controls in place at the regional district to make sure that you're getting accurate reporting of the financial results. Then we sample transactions throughout the year. To do that sampling, we calculate a materiality number. So for the regional district this year was $750,000. That is roughly 3 to 4% of your annual revenue. So we look at every transaction over that amount, and then we sample the smaller transactions. During the course of the audit, we didn't find any irregularities, any unusual transactions, nothing to bring to the board's attention here today. A big thank you to staff at the regional district, to Mike and Tom and David and all the various department heads as well. We don't just bug finance, we do talk to other departments. Another year of mostly remote audit, trying to keep our team and your team safe in the pandemic. And I thank them very much for their patience as we go through that process, and still an unusual process for the audit. I do confirm that we are independent of the regional district. We didn't do any other projects or any other work this year that would impair our ability to give you an independent audit opinion. And I will wrap up with a little bit of financial analysis. We started looking at 2020 and very specific effects of the pandemic coming through in recreation and a few other areas. So we like to look at a longer time frame, look at the last 4 to 5 years, look at some trends in these ratios and see where the finances are moving at the regional district. So we start with sustainability, and we look at, this is comparing your financial assets, your cash and your receivables to your liabilities, kind of a rough measure of liquidity. The magic number here is the number 1. If the ratio is greater than that number, you've got funds set aside in reserves to pay for the future projects. If you dip below this number, then it means you are raising tax requisitions or user fees in the future to pay for the past. So for Strathcona Regional District, this ratio has been fluctuating. We see a 5-year average of about 2.38, but we do see an improvement in 2019 from 1.85 to 2.09. Again, in all years over that number of 1 that I was talking about. Then we look at what we call a flexibility ratio, and we start to look at the infrastructure and see, we calculate a rough aging of that infrastructure to see what type of demands might that put on your finances for replacement and repair and large capital projects. So we compare the depreciated cost to the of those assets on your books right at the end of 2020 to the original historic cost of when they were purchased and built. So the carrying value for the regional district of those capital assets is 57.4%. Similar to the prior year's 56.8. This ratio has been trending upwards. We've seen significant capital projects throughout the last few years, and we know there are more coming down the pipeline. So this ratio has been climbing up. It was 52% in 2016, up to 57% last year. So thank you for taking the time. I'm going to stop sharing so you can have the screen back, but I would be happy to answer any questions on the financial statements or on the audit process.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from directors? Seeing none. Again, Corey, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate it very much. And I'm going to go to Tom for some housekeeping here. I think we kind of jumped from
Yes.
receipt right into the report. So
Yes,
if
Mr.
I'm not,
Chairman, I believe you still have the motion for receipt on the floor, awaiting a vote.
exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And I'd like to have a motion for B that Corey Vanders, CPA CA representing MNP, do a presentation.
So moved.
Move B.
Director Adams and Director Evans. Thank you. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. And I think C, we didn't worry about it because we went right on. So we're on to D, the Strathcona Regional District Audit Consolidated Financial Statements for the year December 31st, 2020 be approved.
Move approval.
Director Lee, seconder.
Second.
Director Adams, thank you. No discussion. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. On to item 2, Municipal Service Committee. Terms of reference. Motion to receive the report.
Move the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director
Second.
Cornfield. Director Adams, second. Anything to add, CEO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Okay. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, terms of reference for the MSC committee be amended.
I would move that the terms of reference for the Municipal Services Committee be amended under section I in section 2.1 by deleting the words member municipalities and substituting the words municipalities and treaty First Nations, and by adding the words and treaty First Nations at the end of the clause. And in section II 3.2 by adding the words and treaty First Nation after the words municipal. And the third bullet by deleting section 4.2.
Second.
Director Adams, seconded. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 3, First Nations Relations Coordination. Motion to receive report.
I would move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Cornfield, seconder.
Second. Wally.
Director Wally, thank you. Anything to add, CEO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, on receipt.
I had
Call
my
question.
hand.
I see a hand in.
Oh, sorry. Question.
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
was your chair for the First Nations Relations Committee. It came to us and was very pleased. It shows a new level of cooperation that may serve us well under the Solid Waste Committee that we all sit on the board of. And yeah, so I think it's good opportunity to work cooperatively with the Comox Valley on First Nations relations.
Great, thank you. Anything else on receipt? For questions, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, the short-term arrangement to provide First Nation relations support for the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service be explored with Comox Valley Regional District.
Move the recommendation.
Cornfield, seconder.
Second. Second, Davis.
Director Davis, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 4, Palouse First Nations ATR report. Motion to receive the report.
I would move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Seconder.
Second, Anderson.
Thank you, Director Anderson. And anything to add, CEO?
It's just that Tina's in a meeting with the First Nation as we speak, so I'll speak on her behalf. And just answering one of the questions that the board had as far as the road and the wharf and the ATR process on the Cortez, and we did get clarification that they are not included in the ATR lands.
So thank you. On receipt, any further questions?
Yes, Anderson.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, the motion, so the next motion B is that we proceed with what? I'm just looking for the wording of that so we can.
Okay, well, you want to, let's get to there, then you can ask the question.
I would just love to move the motion, but I need to know what the motion is before I would move it. It's
Mr. Chairman.
written here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to clarify? The staff recommendation is that once the report is received, that the board look at, and I'm just pulling this up on the screen, hopefully you can see it. The motion that was deferred from last meeting, which was to write a letter of support to Indigenous Services Canada, we're recommending that the board proceed with a vote on that motion.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Nothing more on receipt. I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, that the board proceed with a vote on SRD 3721.
So shall I just put that motion on the floor, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
So I would put back on the floor this motion, the letter of support be provided to Indigenous Services Canada for the addition to reserve application by the Palouse First Nation. I think we can just leave it there.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Second.
Director Mogul, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much. Item 5, Regional Fire Protection Service Feasibility Study. Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Director Davis, seconder.
Second.
Director Adams, thank you. And I'll go to CL.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the regional district currently has a couple fire protection services studies out there. And with our consultant, we've had some discussion about, possibly expanding that, or if he feels there'd be any advantage to that, is that, we're a large regional district. We have electoral areas, municipalities. We're spread quite out pretty thin. And he's done a number of studies in the past for other regional districts and local governments, and feels there is some economies to be had. Now, again, similar to a discussion we had about another regional services, the intent here is not to, the Campbell River Fire Department isn't going to go put out a fire in Gold River. That's not the intent. But the fire services have many resources that there can be a lot of advantages to sharing, or some economies of scale with those in terms of training, administrative, equipment, response. And so it was his communication to us that there likely be some real advantages to all our fire services throughout the region to look at something. And so therefore we're recommending that we engage in a study to look at what economies we can pull out of that.
Okay, thank you. On receipt? Call question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, the further report with cost estimates for investigating a regional fire protection service be prepared for the board's consideration. Motion,
So moved.
Second.
Director Mogul, Director Cornfield. Thank you. And I have Director Abram and Anderson. Director Abram, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, for maybe Vancouver Island area, this may make sense, at least the east coast of Vancouver Island. But as far as the outer islands, basically Quadra, maybe Cortez, I don't know, but it does make a lot of sense to us to proceed with an expensive, possibly feasibility study or whatever, in the end, to come up with something that we really can't use. As most of you know, I believe, over the years, Quadra Island is a bit of an anomaly as far as fire protection goes, because we are not under the regional district. We are an improvement district, which is a complete local government on its own, and it answers directly to municipal affairs. We have no control whatsoever over fire services, what they do, what they spend, et cetera. They have taxation authority, just like we do. They have a board of directors, just like we do. They hire their own staff, and they buy their own equipment. They were assessed by the Fire Association in BC, whatever it's called, as actually being better equipped and trained than the city of Vancouver. So, I'm not too worried about whether or not they'll do a good job, whether or not fire protection in rural areas is even, a wise thing to do, because I think something like 1 out of 25 houses actually gets saved, the rest burned to the ground. Just because of distances. I mean, it's wood houses, they go quick. So I'm not really interested in participating in any kind of shared service on the outside of Quadra Island because of the fact that we are fairly self-sufficient, and I don't believe that there's anything out there that our fire service doesn't already take advantage of. They take courses, training, etc., on a regular basis. I think if Sean Koopman was here, he could probably give you a better description of all the things that I'm talking about. But they are a really good service, and I don't believe we need to mess with it or try and tweak it in any way through this investigating a regional fire protection service. So I would not be in favor of it, and I'd like to exclude Area C.
Okay, well, we'll get there. Mr. Yates, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure the board understood, and for clarity, this is really asking if the board would like a further report that outlines costs and what the scope of the analysis would be and all of those details. At this point, we don't have that. It was a motion that came up at Municipal Services Committee without pre-warning, so we didn't really have time to flesh that out. So the purpose of this recommendation is to see if the board is interested in us doing exactly that, looking at the details, what the cost would be, what the scope of the study would be, and the outcome of that would be then for the board to determine if there's a need for a service or not, or some other arrangement. So that's the nature of the recommendation before you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yates. Director Anderson.
Thank you. One question for somebody who is at the Municipal Services Committee, if I might, and then one comment. The question being, just can you give us any background on where this arose from? Because this is certainly the first I've heard of it. And my comment being that I share Director Abrams' caution. I would certainly want to talk to the fire department here. I'm not opposed to looking into these regional collaborations. But as I said, with the regional recreation service that we considered, I think last time, I would really like us to get us to look at our strategic priorities first. We had identified, I believe, both housing and transportation, and potentially something on climate for regional services. And I just would like to see motion on those before we get into matters that we've not prioritized as a board. So any context on where this came from would be valuable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess I can bring it up. I can discuss it. It's something I think the rural communities are looking for help, whether it's, like you say, not putting out the fires, but maybe it could be a regional stuff like, training, help purchasing equipment, stuff like that. It's not hands-on, come and help us fight the fire, other than, Cab River did there a number of years ago to Gold River and that, but it's just looking at that type of stuff is what I'm looking at, and just seeing what else is available. Okay,
Thank
and I've got thank you, Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not really interested in this initiative. Area D has one of the best volunteer fire departments in BC. We have 38 members in Oyster River Fire, and how we handle helping each other in various communities is through mutual aid agreements. And I do believe that Oyster River has a mutual aid agreement with Campbell River and with Courtenay. And the Oyster River Fire Department does significant training for volunteers. Right now, we've trained firemen and women from a Merville Fire Hall, and we are helping establish a fire station on Mount Washington. And our volunteers are going to these locations to help get the firemen trained and help them design their new fire halls and whatnot, just to lend them a hand. We do get some, through this mutual aid agreement, we get some repayment of any expenses that Oyster River Fire incurs outside of their fire local service area. So we have a very well-established fire protection service, and in addition to fire protection, Oyster River provides first responder service for anyone traveling through Area D and into Black Creek. We have fully trained firemen. So I don't think we need this. You might want to ask Oyster River before you launch into any kind of formal, new feasibility study. Ask them how their services support the two regions involved.
Okay, thank you. Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For Areas A point of view, this to us falls in the same category as the regional tourism service that the municipalities promoted not too long ago. That was followed by a regional economic development service. Last meeting, a regional recreation service. I'm sure that everyone understands that the electoral areas are opposed and refuse to participate in all of these things. And I just can't understand why the municipalities would be so anxious to spend their money, and it's the majority of their money, on feasibility studies on these things which are in reality divisive issues between municipalities and electoral areas. And electoral areas just don't want to participate, and it's just going to cause another fight, which we don't need. And surely you must realize that it doesn't make any difference what the findings of the feasibility study are going to be. Electoral areas are still going to be opposed. So I have what I think is kind of a novel idea that I'd like to suggest, that the municipalities have a municipal services committee with no municipal services, zero. So why not have a municipal fire protection service? The EAs would totally support you in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair, and certainly appreciate the conversations and respecting the position of the electoral area directors, but taking into account Mr. Leach's comments regarding that this is just for information, I would suggest, like the municipal directors, to be honest, if you don't want it, I'm fine with that. I respect your opinion, but I would suggest that we may want to ask the volunteer fire departments in the respective areas whether they see any value, because they're the ones that would benefit. It has no benefit for the municipal areas whatsoever. This is all about safety and fire response, and whether those people that are providing those services in the electoral areas as volunteers see any potential benefit. And if they don't, then let's not do a study.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Moglove.
Actually, it was Director Adams said what I was going to say, but I just wanted to add that at this point, all is being requested is a report with cost estimates. No one is suggesting or going to force any area, electoral area, to participate in a service they don't want to participate in. But this is a regional district that has many municipal participants, just like the electoral areas. Often there are many times we have reports on issues that have nothing whatsoever to do with any municipality. But this is a regional district, and therefore there are services that may be of benefit to more than one municipality and perhaps one of the electoral areas. This is step one in the process. So I don't understand why there would be such negativity on the first step of the process. No one in any way, shape, or form would be forcing any electoral area to participate in a service they don't want to participate in. But there's a regional district made up of how many municipalities and I don't know the number offhand. So let's try and work together so that we can pursue something and get some information.
Yep. So first time speakers, I have Director Cornfield and Baker. Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. First off, if Quad Island Volunteer Fire Department is better trained than Vancouver, I feel sorry for Vancouver. The whole idea about this is about us cooperating together. It's not about putting out fires. That was stated in the very first. It's not about that. It's about how do we work together to make sure that everybody's fire services are better. And it's more than just fire service. It's about fire. It's about rescue as well. And we have, I think Brenda may have forgotten, but we had one where we respond on the highway to Gold River, which is in Area D.
Right.
But we have an agreement there and our crews go out there with the jaws of life, amongst other things. I don't think you'd see Oyster River Volunteer Fire Department responding to a structural fire at Forbes Landing either, or any of the cabins along Upper Campbell Lake. That's not going to happen, and we're not talking about that. It came out, in the municipal services when we had our discussion. This is about how can we cooperate and work better for the betterment of all our constituents, whether they're in electoral areas or inside communities. And that's all it's about. And it's not about forcing anyone. And Gerald, you have constituents that are on our borders as well, who would like to have fire service. But right now there's been no discussion. So this is just about getting the study done. And as you rightfully pointed out, the money that's in there to do these studies, the vast majority of it comes from municipal. So.
Thank you. Director Baker.
No, I agree. I don't see there's any harm at all in just doing the study. Let's get the study done, see what it says, and then go from there. I don't think it should be a big, long discussion. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but let's get the study, see what it states, and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Yep. And I have Director Davis and Evans. Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This has been a great discussion, and I tend to agree with Director Cornfield and Baker on this one. I think that this is just a first step, And we might find some gaps that we can fill here, you know, including training standardization, bulk equipment procurement, those sort of things. And I think we should at least look at that. So that's my feeling on it.
Yep. And Director Evans, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chair. And it has been a really interesting discussion. I'm not going to repeat some points that other directors have spoken to, but also just to recognize that our communities and regions are changing. And I think having this information would be timely in ensuring that we have a baseline of understanding where these potential gaps and opportunities are. So I too support moving forward with this. And then as other directors have indicated, we can decide next steps from there. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to have consistent information and be able to identify whether it's procurement or what other opportunities there are where we can have efficiencies. And so I certainly would support moving this forward.
Great, thank you. Okay, directors, everybody has spoken once now. I've looked at my list, so I'm going to call a question.
Excuse me, Chair.
No, excuse me, what? Sorry?
I have had my hand up.
Yeah, well, I
For a
just,
long time.
well, Director Abram, I just said, everybody has spoken once, and rather, I can see 5 or 6 hands up again. And, you know, to move things forward, all we're looking at is a report. So I'm going to call question.
Also, would like to speak.
Well, I'm going to stop the conversation on it. I think everybody's had their opportunity to speak. I'm going to call question on it. So question on the motion.
Well, that's rather.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Director Abram does have the right to speak if he requests, and he should be allowed to speak.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I have another point of order, if you would, please.
Sure, let's spend all day on it, guys. Okay, Director Abram, go ahead.
Real quick,
Mr. Chairman, it's
Director
decided.
Hang on, Mr. Yates, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe points of order must be decided in sequence. In other words, a decision on one before moving on to the next one, if that's your intention.
Okay, so point of order.
Thank you. Director Wally had a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, not to be tedious on points of order, Mr. Chair, but what happens is when everyone speaks one time, a person who has previously spoken may hear a point made that arises his response that he otherwise wouldn't known about. So it's only fair and procedurally correct to give him a chance to respond to what other directors have said.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to move the meeting along, directors, but that's fine. We'll go back down. I've got a list of 5 directors who want to speak now. So Director Abram, go ahead.
Very quickly, just I think Director Cornfield, I wish you would come over to the Quadra Island Fire Department and make
it's irrelevant to the motion.
It's irrelevant. Director Abram, stop. It's irrelevant to what's going on here.
Secondly, the comments made by Director Anderson, I think, are the most appropriate that have been made so far throughout this entire conversation. We have a strategic plan. We have issues that are on it that we've all voted on, and we are diluting it. Last time it was recreation. This time it's fire. And in the meantime, we don't have enough staff time for the staff to work on our strategic priorities. So I'm just suggesting that we stick to our priorities first and then bring in these, side issues as we can.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
That took less time arguing about it.
Director Anderson.
Thank you. Are we on A or B, Mr. Chair?
You're on B.
Thank you. So I wonder about proposing, I think I'll vote against B, but to improve it, I would like to suggest that we also include along with that outreach to at least the fire chiefs or the boards of the fire departments in our areas to see if this is of interest to our various fire departments, because I think along with a cost estimate, knowing the appetite would be of value. So I would amend an amendment, the further report cost estimate to be prepared for the board's consideration in
It's already there.
Mr. Chair, I think that's
um,
inherent in the work, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, you have to explore a number of things, and, you know, talking with the fire departments and volunteers are going to be part of it.
So Director Anderson, did you hear the CEO that the
yeah,
fire departments will be?
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Joe. Okay, Director Lee.
I was just going to say that the fire chiefs meet regularly and identify gaps in service. The chief of the Oyster River Fire is Bruce Green, and he works for the CVRD. So you can get in touch with him regarding the fire chiefs joint meetings and the fire commissioners meetings to find out what the gaps are. And Oyster River does respond outside of the local service area at times, even into Campbell River on the inland highway. If there's a vehicle fire or a crash, they will go out to help people outside and into the Campbell River area. And so, you know, some of the things that have been said are just, you know, not quite on the mark. I won't be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. So I see Director Adams and Director Cornfield's hand up. Is that still up, or Director Adams?
No, I have nothing further. I said before, just refer this to the chiefs. Let's not have a report. Let's just see if they have any interest.
Director Cornfield?
Well, yeah, I won't support one that just talks about it going to the chiefs. That's a totally different motion.
Okay, there's a motion on
the motion that's on the floor is a further report with cost estimates for, it's the way it's written, correct? Under B?
Correct. That's correct.
And so I just want to call the question on it.
Okay, question been called. Anyone opposed?
Lee.
Lee, Wally. Director Lee, Director Wally. Abram. Dr. Jim. Seeing no more, motion's carried. Item 6, Plan H grant application, Strathcona Food Action Plan. Motion to receive.
Move receipt.
You, Director Evans, seconder.
Second, Wally.
Director Wally, thank you, and the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Libby will speak to this for us.
I think I can. I think that Annika was going to speak to it.
Or Annika.
Okay.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair to the board. The purpose of this report is to advise the board of an opportunity to apply to the Plan H Healthy Communities Grant Program to address regional food security in the area. We are aware that there are definitely gaps to food security in the Strathcona region, and we therefore propose that an application be submitted to the Plan H program to fund a Strathcona Food Action Plan. Now, what we're proposing is that this action plan would do a number of things to assist with the food security capacity in the region, mostly gathering and analyzing data, which would also identify and assess gaps, coordinate collaborative actions between the community and developing a community vision and a strategy. Also reviewing other food hub models that are currently in existence and making recommendations for a model for the Strathcona region, and also identifying next steps, which would assist with food security throughout the entire region. Funding is available for up to $15,000 for these types of projects, which has a collaborative approach with it, working with other health authorities and partners in order to better understand priority areas and local needs. Applications are due on June the 1st, with the successful applicants being advised in July, and the project needs to be completed between September 2021 and September 2022. Given the opportunity here and discussions with Campbell River, we are proposing that the board authorize an application to the Plan H program. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? On receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, that the grant application be approved for submission.
So moved, Anderson.
Move B.
Anderson and Evans, thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? Director
One
Anderson?
question.
Yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just curious, who would actually be carrying out the work? Is this the health network or one of the partners, or actually our own SRD staff?
Okay.
I can answer that if you like. Through the CAO to the chair, we would be getting a consultant to do the work. It could well be someone in the region, but we'd be looking for a report at the end of it.
Cute.
Thank you. Any other questions? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item C, the 2021-2025 financial plan be amended.
Move C.
Get the application.
Sorry.
Director Evans,
Second,
thank you.
Anderson.
Director Anderson, second, thank you. Any further discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 7, Quad Island Recreation Association membership. Motion received.
Move to receive.
Director
Second.
Abrams, Director Lee, thank you, and the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll hand this over to Tom.
Okay. Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This report currently before the board is a follow-up to a report the board considered, I believe, a couple of months ago to see whether the Quadra Island Rec Society would qualify and whether there was interest in being sponsored under the regional district's liability insurance with the MIABC. So we have done that follow-up, and they have confirmed that to the extent the Quadra Island Rec Society provides services on behalf of the regional district, that they would be prepared to allow them to be affiliated as an associate member. There will be some costs associated with that, and we would need to reckon with that as part of the process. The next step, should the board support the motions before today, would be to have those discussions with the Quadra Island Rec Society and confirm the extent of coverage and the cost. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And
Move
any
B.
questions? Okay, we're still on receipt. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Move B by Director Abrams. Thank you, Director Abrams. Seconder,
Second.
Director Lee, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Seeing none. Director Anderson?
Thank you. I fully support this, and it, of course, then raises the question about what other societies or organizations might also qualify. I'm curious about the two community organizations around the halls here, perhaps Sayward Valley, also perhaps others. So I would request that as staff explore this with Quadra, that we consider what other partnerships this might offer, because I've certainly been asked by the community associations here over the years if there was any insurance partnership opportunities, and I now see wrongly advised that there weren't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So
CO?
if that's the case, Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate a motion.
Or just?
I would also offer a subsequent then.
Okay, thank you. So we have motion on the floor right now. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? I don't see any. Carried. And Director Anderson?
That after exploration with Quadra has been concluded, that staff consider other insurance partnerships throughout the regional district.
Like other opportunities?
Second.
Sure.
Okay.
But after consultation with the Quadra Island Recreation Society, that other insurance partnerships be explored throughout the region, or similar insurance partnerships. Thank you.
Okay, it's Director Anderson, second by Director Abram. Any further discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. On the bylaws. Bylaw 429, Connected Coast Loan Authorization. Motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Director Colburn, Director Wally, CEO.
Mr. Chair, I should probably dive in here.
Okay.
This report was placed on the agenda in the hope and belief, based on conversations with the Municipal Affairs Ministry, that the inspector would have approved the bylaw prior to today's meeting.
Okay.
I've been watching my emails just to see whether that has happened yet, and we have not been so notified. So I believe that after the receipt of the report, that the board will have to defer further consideration of this matter until we have been advised of the inspector's approval. It would not make sense to move forward with an AAP without that, because it all hinges on the date of approval. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much, Mr. Yates. So just on receipt then, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed?
Just a sec. I had my hand up.
You have a question on receipt?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Based on the information that Mr. Yates came. Item B is just the approving of the electoral response form. It doesn't say we're approving the alternate approval process, so I don't know why we aren't also doing B as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to respond to that?
Go ahead.
The elector response form does have a deadline on it, a deadline for responses. And so unless the board is going to proceed today with the start or the kickoff of the AAP, we're going to have to change some of those dates. So that's what I recommend that we not.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Abram, did you have a question or just want to carry on?
Yeah, it was just along the lines of Director Cornfield, so forget it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm going to go on to receipt then of the CO report. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. So I'm looking for a motion to defer until we hear back.
I would move that the board defer items 429B, C, and D until confirmation from the minister's office.
Second.
Thank you. Director Adams, thank you.
I have a
On
comment.
defer? On deferment?
Comment, please.
Go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out to the board that this bylaw is exactly the result of the government not giving us the grants that they indicated they were going to give us for Connected Coast. So we're having to go through this process at great cost to the regional district.
It's no cost to regional
So
district.
let's get that letter out there.
Yep.
For an AP, sure there is.
Okay, thank you. All questions? Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 2, bylaw 430, director compensation amendment. Motion receive the report.
So moved.
Move receipt. Second.
Cornfield Lee, CO. Anything to add?
Sorry, I was muted there. My apologies. Sorry, this is in response to the board's direction, just to make what I would clarify as a housekeeping amendment to the director compensation bylaw to approve meeting expenses for the chair.
Yep. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried.
Move
Item
B.
B, the bylaw. Director Cornfield, second.
Second.
Director Adams, any discussion? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item C.
Move C.
Second.
You. Director Cornfield, Director Evans, any discussion? Questions? Anyone opposed? Carried. And item
Move
D.
Move D.
Director Cornfield, seconder.
Second.
Director Evans, thank you. Any discussion? I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Correspondence, ICE-T Economic Recovery Program. Motion
Member C.
received.
Member C.
I'm just going to do one at a time.
All
Member
right.
C.
Okay. Director Lee, Director Abram second, and Director Abram, you have a comment.
Yes, please. I'm just wondering, you know, we get these ICT announcements every now and then of money they've awarded to various projects around the province and around our area. And I'm just wondering how we get notified as individual municipalities, local areas, whatever, of these opportunities. I certainly never saw anything about this money being available for these purposes. So if we are going to apply for them, we need to know about them. And I believe, I believe every municipality has their mayor on ICE-T, and each regional district has its chair on the ICE-T. So does the information that is passed on at ICE-T then get passed to the individual electoral area directors so that they can, if they have projects in their area that fit the programs, are able to apply for it?
Okay, thank you. And
SCO?
Director Adams.
Thank you. Just to correct Director Abrams, there are two subcommittees. There is one, the North Island subcommittee, and then there's a South Island, and they only meet 2 to 3 times per year. The ICE-T board meets regularly, and the CAO then through their staff posts this on the ICE-T website, and it is incumbent upon either regional districts or municipalities to check as to what that is, because there will be members of electoral areas and municipalities that are on the subcommittees that would not be privy to this information unless they regularly went onto the main website for bulletins and updates. So the director is incorrect as that there are representatives that would have this information any sooner than they would and had an opportunity to report back to the rest of the board.
Yep.
Okay, well, I apologize for
No
not
apology
getting it
needed,
right
just
because I'm
correcting
wrong.
information. Thank you. We can move on.
But I would just like to suggest then that if this is something that goes on to an ICE-T website on a regular basis, that our staff monitor that and let us know informally, even a phone call, an email, whatever, to just say that there's money available for X if you'd like to apply for it. Because most of the staff know what projects we have going in our areas. So it would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things on that. Staff continually monitor all grant opportunities. We hardly pass one up. There hardly is a board meeting where we're not bringing a grant application or an opportunity to. We monitor all these sites, locations. We are in communication with these groups. I don't know the specifics about this ICE-T one, but as I quickly flip through it, staff will vet some of these so that it's unnecessary to bring them forward. This one looks like purely tourism and economic development. Every award here seems to be related to that. We do not have either service in this regional district. It's likely that staff got this, determined that we don't have service or function for it, didn't bring it forward.
Thank you. Director Cornfield.
I guess my question is to you or Director Adams. I receive regular emails from ICE-T announcing different grants, awarding of different grants, and every one of them has a little section on that that says, you know, for further information, you can go on to the web page. Was my understanding, like I don't sit on ICE-T, so my understanding is it was sent to every local government official. So if you're a councillor, you would get a copy. If you're in an electoral area, it would be sent to you. I'm not sure if I'm correct or not, but I know I get them all the time. And so I would think that others should be getting it if they're not. Well, okay.
Just to add on to that, you can be rest assured if there's a grant opportunity, staff are monitoring it, we bring them forward.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
Just super briefly, there's a lot of these opportunities that apply to our communities, but not the SRD. Cortez was awarded one of these because the local Community Economic Development Association applied for one and was successfully granted one because there's very difficult to get a service through the regional district. So there are opportunities. It'd be really great for the electoral area directors to know these things. In addition to there being opportunities for the SRD to apply directly. So I cannot concur more strongly with what Director Abram is saying. Now, because we have people who are combing through these things all the time and looking for grant opportunities on behalf of the social profit sector, generally on Cortez, we caught this one, but not every community is as fortunate.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other first-time speakers? If not, Director Abrams, you still have your hand up, or is it a new time?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
real quick,
finish?
I have never received I've never received an email from ICE-T regarding any grant opportunities whatsoever. And if they are going to be SRD, and the criteria is that unless there's a service, we don't apply for it, doesn't really fit with what Director Anderson just said. You know, we as electoral areas, we don't have a service unless it's within our own area. But if the staff have the information, we're only an email away, you know, of a forward of an email, and we would then know about it. So maybe we could change that procedure to notify us, even though we are not part of some sort of regional service, we are still part of the region. And, you know, if we want to talk about regional cooperation, that would be a good one.
Okay, thank you. On receipts, anyone opposed? Carried. Item 2, responsible conduct in local government. Motion to receive.
So moved.
Move receipt.
Cornfield,
Second.
Director Evans, thank you. CO.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. On receipt, any questions? Okay, none. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. No members, no management. On new business. Director Anderson, I believe.
No, me.
Sorry, Director Cornfield.
Thank you. I would move that the board chair write a letter to the appropriate ministers requesting reversal of their grant decision on high-speed internet.
Second that, Davis.
Director Davis seconded. Thank you. Plain and simple. I don't think there's any discussion. We'll just wait for Edie to bring it up just to make sure.
Okay, so
Director Cornfield?
no, it's that the SRD chair write a strongly worded letter to the appropriate ministers.
Okay.
requesting a reversal of the grant decision regarding Gold River's application.
Well, it's more than
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
I just say regarding application, Connect the Coast applications.
Okay.
Last mile applications.
Yeah.
Last
mile. Good.
Get rid of internet speed.
Right.
Okay. Good. Director Cornfield?
Okay, it looks good. Do we have to put a date or application numbers
No,
or anything?
I got it. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Director Coburn?
I believe that we should probably add Connected Coast into the actual motion, just so that is clear. Thanks.
Okay, well, you could put regarding Connected Coast last mile applications then, is what I would suggest.
Would the mover accept that as friendly?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item T, closed session, report to CEO be received.
Move receipt of the report from the CAO on the closed session.
Director Lee, second. Director Davis, thank you. CEO, anything to add?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B.
Move B, that a closed session be held immediately following termination of the public meeting to consider matters deemed to fall within the parameters of subsections 91A, F, J, N, and O of the community charter.
Seconder.
Second.
Director Cornfield. Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Motion to terminate.
So moved.
Director Wally, second. Director Davis, thank you. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. See you all in a minute.